Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Today I want to report on protests against the German government and in particular against the China bug measures and regulations that we have in place still, even though there is nothing going on, just like last summer. If you followed my channel back then, 1 year ago, you might still remember that I covered that in very much detail. Back then, just a little reminder, in the first instance, the Verwaltungsgericht Berlin banned the demonstrations, and then the Oberverwaltungsgericht, I believe it is called, that is the higher instance, they cancelled that verdict and they revised it. They said, no, these demonstrations are constitutional, they are legal, you cannot ban them. And then last summer in Berlin, we still remember the pictures of these demonstrations maybe. These demonstrations took place. They were finally allowed and nothing happened because people were of course saying, the politicians, the city of Berlin, they were saying that these demonstrations will be super spreader events and after that the numbers of infections will skyrocket and we will all die. Yeah, nothing like that happened. You see the data, we all saw the data, nothing happened whatsoever. You couldn't detect these events or any increase in the rate of infections as a consequence, as a follow-up to these events in the data. So nothing happened. And what are they doing this year, 1 year later, where we have the same situation again? It is the warm season, it is summer, so all these flu-like respiratory viruses are of course, well, they're having their summer sleep, if you wish, yeah, their hibernation, so to speak, and nothing is going on here on this front. And what are the authorities saying? They're saying, oh, we looked at the objective facts and we have to ban these events. We cannot allow them to happen. Of course, it remains a secret what kind of objective facts they are referring to. The only fact that I see is that there is nothing going on at the moment. I agree that maybe in December it would be a different story or in January, but in summer there is no problem. And by the way, even the people who are protesting these organizations like Querdenken, they in the cold season, they made a pause for their protests. They said, well, we get it, even we understand that now is the flu season or something, so it would be unwise to do that at the moment. It would be too confrontational maybe, so they had a little break and now in summer they start again. And what do the authorities in Berlin say? They say no, and they banned, I think, 12 events for this weekend in Berlin. And I think this time you will not have the next instance, the higher court revising that verdict or this decision of the lower court. I think it will be banned. It is already Sunday and I didn't hear anything to the contrary. So many events that were absolutely constitutional, absolutely legal and properly announced, the application was filed in a proper manner, but the court declined that application. So what does that tell us? First and foremost, of course, we are not living in a democracy. It is a simulated democracy. It is anarcho-tyranny. It is what I always say over and over again, it is selective enforcement of rules. Yeah? For one group, these rules are strictly enforced. For other groups, they are not enforced at all. Why am I saying this? Well, the evidence is right here. Just 1 week ago, in the same city, in Berlin, there was the Christopher Street Day, they call it, I guess. It is this rainbow flag event where they dance naked in the street, and there were some citizen reporters were also there, and they showed to the world that nobody there, almost nobody there was caring about any of these hygiene restrictions or anything of the like. No masks, no distancing. What, of course, they don't distance there. They do quite the opposite. And I'm sure, even though the China bug is not going around at the time, I'm sure they spread a lot of other viruses. I mean, there are more viruses than just the China bug, right? So I think a lot of viruses were spread nonetheless. And what did the authorities do? They didn't do anything. They looked away. They all knew about that. They all saw it and nobody said a thing. because we all know that these protests are not just parties, they are political protests. The CSD is a political event and they are pro-German establishment, pro-Angela Merkel, pro-EU, pro our system, our current system. And that is why these protests, and they're not really protests, they are celebrating the current system of power that we have. And these events are, of course, all allowed to happen. And even more, the current rules are not even applied to them. So not only are they allowed to have their degenerate parade there, no, they are also exempt from all the rules that anybody who has any kind of event at the moment, who's hosting or planning or organizing such an event, they all need a hygiene concept, of course. And these pro-Merkel system agitators are explicitly exempt from these rules. And this happened just 1 week earlier. And I didn't say anything at the time because I hate to make assumptions, right? I could have said, oh, look, rules for thee, but not for me. Basically what I'm saying now. But it could also have been, just imagine, that by now the city of Berlin and the authorities there had learned their lesson. So I was charitable. I was giving them the benefit of a doubt. I didn't make a video. I didn't say anything because maybe they learned their lesson and they are allowing all these events and protests and demonstrations right now. But look, 1 week later, they banned 12 protests that were critical of the government. And 1 week earlier, as I said, they allowed one, a very big one with no masks and no social distancing that was pro-German government. So this is what I said a lot of times in the past. We can see the pattern very clearly now. It is systematic what they're doing here. They are allowing all and promoting also all these pro-government, pro-EU, pro-New World Order events, and they're banning with really ridiculous arguments, with really ridiculous reasons. They are banning all the demonstrations and all the protests that are against the government, against our ruling elites, our ruling class. And can you still call that a democracy? The right to protest, which is in our constitution, is not meant for events that are celebrating the current government or something like that. It is, of course, meant to protect citizens or to allow citizens to raise their voices and criticize the government. That's the reason of a demonstration in the first place. This is why it has to be protected by the Constitution. Of course, events where the ruling class is celebrating themselves do not require constitutional protection, of course. The only thing that must be protected and guaranteed by the Constitution is when, in a democracy, the citizens want to criticize their government and the regime. And when that is not possible, and for plainly to see, for political reasons, they are just banning one event and they're allowing the other event, then I'm sorry, then you have to say, well, this is not a proper Western-style democracy anymore, and maybe it is only revealed now that we never lived in a Western-style democracy at all. But from the very beginning, it was only a simulation, and only now the litmus test is actually performed that shows us in what a system we have been living for all these years. Alright, let me know what you think about that in the comments down below, and I want to thank, of course, all my supporters and all my subscribers. Like, share and subscribe, and I want to invite you especially to follow me also on alt or small tech platforms. Links are down below. And if you want to support my work, if you want to see more presentations like that, you can make a donation or support me via Patreon or Subscribestar. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Servus, Kameraden.